it's overwhelming, but it's also our jobs.
Our job is only going to get harder.
It's worrisome.
This is something that's unprecedented.
Now is not the time to be a cowboy. No one has anything to prove. We're all in this together.
Welcome to Reporting from the Frontline of a Pandemic. I'm Maya Huter, and I'm here with Judy Tygard, the executive producer of 48 Hours at CBS. Thanks, Judy, for joining me.
Happy to.
So my first question is, can you just tell me a little bit about how you've had to adjust the way you work during this pandemic?
There's nothing that's the same about how we work. Everything's been turned upside down. Our giant broadcast center in New York City was shut down when some of our colleagues became sick with the virus. And it was kind of basically like everybody out. So people were grabbing their laptops, whatever drives they could get, whatever notes they thought. And it's like kind of, get out of the building and figure out how we're going to put the pieces back together.
So since much of your show is pre-shot, pre-recorded, and then you have to, write and edit to make it all go together, how is that working since people are working at home doing that?
So all of our editors, our whole team of editors is now working from laptops with Avid software. We share media and we screen on the cloud with a program called Sony C, and so that we can all kind of have a progress report on where we are. Our biggest challenge in producing the documentary is getting the media from the broadcast center, where it normally lives on a huge server, to the individual teams that have to work with it. And we had never had the experience of trying to harvest all that media digitally. So when the building first shut down, we were able to get like a tiny team of techs back inside for just a few hours. And they were kind of frantically, filling these drives, these huge drives, with all of the media that's needed to produce an hour-long documentary. And then those drives were couriered to all the different editors who were, editing in their pajamas.
That sounds very hectic and very crazy. So it sounds like you do have some footage on hand right now, but if it gets to the point where we're in this for a few months and say, you need to start recording new footage, or you're out of the footage you have, do you know what that's going to look like in terms of trying to get new content?
Well, we have right now, we have content to finish our entire season. And, the season ends in late May, and then we also have a very special 6-run episode over the summer. So we have enough content in the pipeline to deliver all of those shows. They're not cut, they're not written, they're not finished, but they're all sort of in the pipeline. The challenge is we have a very long lead time, and we have to start stockpiling shows for next season. And the whole, not only has our lives been disrupted, everyone on the planet's lives have been disrupted. So the court system is at pretty much a standstill. So that's going to have a gigantic impact on how we're going to be able to do a true crime show where our viewers really want to know how it ends. And we'll probably have to turn to more kinds of cold cases, or more kinds of maybe take a look back at some interesting issues in some older cases. But it's very tough. We're not putting anybody on planes right now. We're not shooting in a suite with anybody. We're not going into anybody's home. We do a lot of shooting in forensic labs. We're not doing any of that. So one of the big creative challenges that we're going to have to meet weeks down the road is, how are we going to preserve our brand, which our audience loves? How do we preserve that brand, not be able to work the same way? So we have a little time to sort out the shooting, but it's going to be very, very interesting how we can pull this off. For example, for social distancing, you have to stay 6 feet away from anybody that you're talking to. So we're following those rules very strictly, and we're doing most of our shooting outside. And for, an upcoming case where 2 children are missing and are believed to be buried in Yellowstone, we're going to get in snowmobiles far apart and take you into the area where authorities believe the children may be. And that snowmobile ride will kind of take the place of like a traditional interview in a police station or something like that.
Wow, so you're really having to get creative with what you do.
Right, right.
So as a whole, how is CBS as a network handling this change? How are they supporting and making it possible for you guys to do your work this way?
Well, CBS, Viacom CBS has really shown how their first and foremost commitment is to the safety of the workers. So even knowing that not every one of the broadcasts had things figured out, as soon as we started seeing some of our colleagues were getting sick, they kind of shut everything down. They really put safety first, and they left us all to scramble and try to pick up the pieces and figure out how we're going to stay on the air. So that was something that we can all be very proud of. And even though it put us all in a really, precarious position, we totally understood and supported that. I mean, you can see how puffy my face is. No, it's been it feels like Groundhog Day. Every day is like 20 hours long, figuring out the logistics of how to continue to write and edit and deliver these shows entirely remotely.
So since you're now working from home, what has been the hardest part of, I guess, balancing your work life and your home life, since now home is work and work is home? And
right now, there's no balance. Right now, there is absolutely no balance. Maybe at 10 o'clock at night, I can have dinner with the family, and I will watch something that has nothing to do with true crime or nothing to do with the coronavirus. I'll like rewatch The Office with the kids, or watch Arrested Development for the 12th time, just to kind of slow my brain down and disconnect a little bit.
So as the executive producer of this show, what has been the hardest part of having to do this from home, since you can't be there with your team in person?
The hardest part is making sure that everybody is safe. We've had a couple of close calls, but for the most part, our staff has stayed healthy. And making sure that we can emotionally support and make sure that people on the staff who are sick are getting what they need. That is the absolute hardest part of working from home, because you don't know exactly how everyone is doing. So kind of 48 hours is used to coming together as a team. We're used to crashing. We're used to being very, very self-sufficient. So we know that we can figure out the mechanics of this. We know we can always write good stories and tell good stories. So even though the logistics are demanding, it's not the hard part. The hard part is worrying about everybody and making sure that everybody is safe. That's been the number one thing weighing on me and all of us, everyone at 48 hours.
So as broadcast journalism students and seniors who are graduating, this is all something that we're dealing with as well. What kind of advice would you have for somebody who's in broadcast journalism or a student in broadcast journalism to be able to go forward and still work through this pandemic?
So I think that first and foremost, you have to put the safety of whoever's on the front line first. You have to make sure that they know that they have the power to say, this doesn't feel right, I don't want to do this. That's really not normally how we think in the news business. We run towards earthquakes, we run towards fires. We, are used to putting ourselves sort of in danger to tell a story. This is a little different because it's not just about you. It's about, you could become sick, you could infect others. You really have to put the safety of the individual first and then think about the greater good. So if that means that your coverage isn't as robust as you would like it, now is not the time to be a cowboy. No one has anything to prove. We're all in this together. So that's the first consideration that you have. And then, if that's your starting point, you can just trust your instincts to help you find a way around whatever obstacles in front of you. How can I do this? Is it going to be Zoom? Is it going to be Skype? Am I going to venture out into the world and talk to people outside on the sidewalk? We have crews riding in separate cars. It's kind of everybody's in their own little pod. To eliminate the need to have to stay overnight at hotels, we've even put crews in RVs, so that they can go and they can stop and they can overnight on the way to a shoot, but not be at risk of endangering themselves or anybody else.
So would you say that the way that you've had to communicate with your team throughout this pandemic has been different, or like you're communicating more?
Well, we never used Zoom before, and now we use it every day, all day, 20 times a day. And it's the way that we all connect. And, when you put it on the gallery view and you see all the faces, it's been like a lifesaver for making people feel that the world isn't coming to an end. We're all here. We're all working. You can see with your own eyes that everybody's okay. It's kind of fun to look in the background and see what kind of artwork people have, or to meet the cat that walks through the shot, or the toddler whose head pokes up. So that is the way that we have been able to stay connected, and it's been everything.
Is there anything else that you would like to add about your experience or how you're dealing with this?
Well, I feel very fortunate, as I said, like so deeply fortunate that for the most part our staff is healthy and safe. And given that, I could really use a few more hours of sleep in a row, as everybody could. We don't cover the coronavirus.
Right.
We give you your escape from the coronavirus. And our viewers are like, thank you so much. This is oxygen. This is engaging. This takes me far away. I love this. And, listen, the other thing that a couple of people have posted on some of our social media pages, then they've said, if I'm trapped with my wife for 14 days and I end up dead, it's not the virus.
I've definitely heard that staying home with my family as well. Thank you, Judy, for taking the time to talk to me, and thank you for the work you're doing to keep us informed and safe. And thank you to all of you for watching this episode of Reporting from the Frontline of a Pandemic. I've been talking with Judy Tygard, the executive producer of 48 Hours on CBS. I'm Maya Huter.